All right, today we're going to be breaking it down for you guys. Could be the biggest announcement ever in the history of XRP. You guys are going to love it. My name is Paul Barrow. Welcome back into the show. Let's go over to our sponsor today, and that, of course, is Tangem. You guys can jump over to Tangem and get your journey started when it comes to self-custody. One of the things you want to do over there is make sure you get 3-card set, because that's going to help you guys get started, and you've got that backup. Now, if you've never used a self-custody device, this is probably one of the fastest to set up and the most secure. So use our link down below and you guys can get started. So right there, easy, fast, and secure. All right, let's get into it. I want to show you guys something. The thing I'm going to kind of showcase here is Axelar. We've had Georgios on before. We'll bring him on in a second with a surprise. But Axelar has, of course, started to explode in terms of TVL. Again, this is part of the Binance traffic that has started to move within it. So it's definitely crossing over into the 1 billion club. So I'm going to bring in both of our guests today, and that would be Dennis, who is the co-founder of Midas, and then, of course, Georgios, who's been on the show before. You guys know him. He's a co-founder there at Axelar. How are you guys?
Very well.
Excellent.
Doing
Good to see you.
Excited to be back.
So let's kind of get into the announcement.
Yeah, let me level set a little bit, because we finally have smart contracts in the XRPL ecosystem. And right now we have all the ingredients to build a DeFi ecosystem around the XRPL. So the 3 ingredients I'd like to focus on. One, of course, it's Axelar. With Axelar being the first interoperability platform connecting to XRPL, you now have access to the XRPL EVM, but also 80 other chains. Of course, the XRPL EVM itself is today a necessary component for DeFi in the XRPL ecosystem, because it's the first time we have smart contracts in the ecosystem. And the third building block is Midas. Midas is the biggest provider of vault infrastructure across the Ethereum ecosystem, and they're going to be coming to the XRPL EVM and connected to the XRPL itself through Axelar. So with these 3 ingredients, it's now time to kickstart the DeFi ecosystem. The first big product launch is going to be mXRP, a product that exists in a similar form in the Ethereum ecosystem and has $50 billion of AUM in that ecosystem. If you're familiar with Lido, EtherFi, these are similar products over there that provide yield to the holders. So as a holder of mXRP, you will be able to earn yield just by holding. And you will also have opportunities to deposit mXRP in DeFi for additional utility and additional yield.
All right, so that's a big announcement. I'm looking at your Twitter account. Axelar soon enable yield sources for XRP, capturing USD-denominated yield from both ETH and Solana. One of the key things you hit on right here is an infinite money glitch coming into XRP. Really kind of, I think, escalate the opportunity of what we're going to see around XRP in general. Is this going to have KYC or minimums? What's the process? Maybe you can answer that, Dennis.
mXRP is designed to be a product that anyone in DeFi can use. So it's a token that adheres to the highest regulatory standards, but at the same time doesn't compromise on composability and transferability. So users can subscribe the product if you're in an eligible jurisdiction. So unless you're anywhere in sanctioned countries, the United States, the UK, or other restricted regions where you are not able to access this product, you will be able to find exposure to the product. And then once you have the product, you can decide to do many things with it. So you could, for example, hold it passively and let your returns compound, or you can engage with it in a thriving and composable DeFi ecosystem that we're building. So these are things we'll discuss more later, but the product is accessible to a wide audience.
You guys can get a chance to look at some of the yields that are being paid out there. What would I expect in terms of target yields on this?
Of course, it's always difficult to make projections going forward. Since we have a regulatory framework, we caution not to make forward-looking statements. However, that being said, if you look at some of the yield profiles on the website, or if you look at the historical performance, you can get an idea. So I think today we've run the numbers and simulations. You're looking at something of high single-digit return profiles, and we'll see how it comes when the product is live in the market shortly.
High single-digit. That's good. Those are good numbers. Who's using these tokens right now when it comes to the overall situation that you guys are in at Midas?
We have nearly $1 billion of TVL. So we have quite a wide range of user groups. I would say the biggest user groups are prosumers and small institutional users.
Okay.
So around 70% of our wallets come from users that hold over $1 million. So it's quite institutional catered. That being said, if DeFi as a whole, so if you look at the average use of Aave, the average use of Morpho and Euler, actually it's quite similar. So there tend to be few users in terms of numbers, but high value users. And this is ultimately something we've seen with the average user group across all of the DeFi ecosystem. That being said, this may actually be a limitation of the Ethereum ecosystem itself, because gas fees and other considerations have generally led for this to be only economic if you make transactions that size. So while it's feasible to target wider user groups, it just happens to be that a lot of your users are institutional size.
Well, I can imagine this is going to be pretty well received within the XRP community. So the likelihood is we're going to see some big activity going on.
Just to disclose, Midas is my biggest DeFi position on chain. I do some trading. I've been using their protocol for a long time. I'm also an investor in the seed round. And mXRP came about really because, and I was thinking, why don't we do the same thing for XRPL? It's as simple as that. At the same time, there are other vault providers, but if you look at who is doing things like in a regulated, compliant, high integrity manner, in my opinion, Midas is by far the most credible team to tackle this problem, right? Extremely high pedigree team. Most of the team, I believe, is from Goldman Sachs. Dennis is one of Dennis's co-founders, who was head of product at Ondo. You're familiar with Ondo, I'm sure.
Yep.
10 billion valuation. There's really no other team with this caliber. So this was a no-brainer for us. And I have high conviction that Midas is the right partner, both as a user, but also as a go-to-market partner.
Let's talk about yield vaults and integrating mXRP into those. Can you share more on that, Dennis?
So we've partnered up with a number of top-tier asset managers to make this happen. And as a result, we'll be integrating the receipt token on many other DeFi protocols that allow users then to enhance the return profile even further. So a user can, for example, deposit into the asset, receive the receipt token, and then in a fully DeFi composable manner, engage with other protocols in order to enhance the return further, provide it as collateral, loop against it, or even stand on the asset in a more passive fashion.
That's going to be good. But we just had Hugo on with Flare Networks not too long ago, and he is on your tail right now in terms of getting this done out there. So there's some competition. How fast can we see this happen, Georgios?
The interview is going to be live by the time the product will be live. So we're looking a week from now.
Wow.
With respect to yields, we talked about high single-digit yields. Just for illustrative purposes, let's talk about 7%, right? And let's assume that 7% is the annual return for holding mXRP. By leveraging these additional opportunities that Dennis mentioned, right? For example, you will be able to go on a lending protocol like Morpho and get a loan against your mXRP. Using the loan, you will be able to deploy it again into DeFi strategies and increase your yield. So for users that have higher risk appetite, you will be able to do these looping strategies and go from 7% to like 12% or 14% or even 20% with more aggressive strategies. So what's really nice here is that the protocol itself allows users to decide on their risk profile and potentially go after significantly higher returns.
Yeah.
What's also worth noting with respect to Flare is that mXRP is not limited to a single ecosystem. So it's going to access yield from many different chains. As an example, some of the existing Midas vaults, they earn yield on Flare. So if Flare has some good yields for XRP, the asset manager will take the XRP collateral and deploy on Flare and capture that yield, in addition to many other sources on Ethereum, on Solana, and many other ecosystems. Of course, this yield will mostly be in USDC, and the USDC is going to be used to buy back more XRP and distribute that to the users, right? So in addition to having the highest yields on the market, because mXRP will be able to aggregate sources from everywhere, not just from Flare or from Ethereum or Solana, it also becomes a perpetual buyer of XRP, where collateral of mXRP is in a way locked out of circulation, and then it's used to generate yield in USD and buy more and more XRP over time. So this is also very healthy for the price of XRP.
So that's, again, that'll feed the ecosystem. What you're telling me is this going to be available immediately with being able to do loans against your XRP?
Maybe not day one, but yeah, the teams are actively working on that.
Okay.
And I mean, Dennis is the expert here. He's been working on Morpho for the longest time. And I believe Midas is one of the biggest contributors of AUM for Morpho. So I'll let Dennis chime in.
All of our assets are integrated across different Morpho vaults. They're also integrated on Pendle and many other interesting DeFi protocols. So we'll make it available in Dulcos and are working with all of the main curators in order to foster adoption. Of course, we are, as the infrastructure providers and Morpho and different creators on Morpho, having different, I would say, degree of control. So we don't necessarily have control over Morpho vaults, but of course there will be interest in the products provided the performances as we anticipate it to be. So we're working very hard to make it available as soon as possible, and we expect this to be the case in the coming weeks. Yeah.
Paul, we're also having discussions. Maybe I won't disclose the partners, but if you look at like chains like BNB, Binance's blockchain, like Base, the Coinbase blockchain, some of the new blockchains that are launching, because Axelar is connected to all of them and can distribute mXRP there, we are in active discussions to do similar integration. So it won't be just Morpho. There are going to be additional sources for utility for mXRP in many other major ecosystems.
If you look at what Layer 0 has been able to do, single click, 140 chains out there, will we see something like that?
Yes. In principle, it's the exact same configuration where we're able to get one high quality collateral asset, a yield-bearing vault, with the technology of the Axelar network across multiple DeFi ecosystems. Yeah.
One other thing, I look at the size of the XRP ecosystem. Would you consider doing some kind of event that would help onboarding into these pools? Some sort of bonus, some sort of program that would really kind of initiate the army?
Yeah, I don't know if I can disclose specifics, but
you can disclose them right here.
The Axelar Foundation is looking to create some of these programs in the early days, just to bootstrap adoption. Frankly, I don't know if that's necessary. If you look at Midas's growth, they had 50 million in AUM in January, and now they're close to $1 billion, right? 940 million as of today. They're definitely going to hit $1 billion very, very soon. What's remarkable is they did this without any points or incentive programs. It was all organic demand because the product is good and people like making money. That said, Axelar Foundation is committed to help grow the XRPL, and we do want to accelerate adoption. So there is going to be a distribution related to mXRP, and we'll be able to disclose more about that in the coming weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we will have a very exciting surprise coming in the future. But to the point of our growth, so we're adding around $100 million of assets, so TVL per week. So we're definitely on quite a growth journey. All of this without any governance incentive tokens, incentives, points of their kind, purely on merit of the product itself. So we focus on attractive organic yield, good risk-adjusted returns. So that's ultimately because we've been doing this for quite a while. We know what works, we know what doesn't work. We partner with top-tier asset managers. We have a top-tier team. So we have a team formerly from Goldman Sachs, Capital Group, Ondo, McKinsey. There's a top-tier team that is both on TradFi but also in crypto, very lean. But we're also very lean in what we do. We do very few things. Those things we try to do them very well. And this is one of those things that we're really excited about.
Yeah, I was looking at some of your partners here. Pretty big groups, obviously, BlackRock and Tether. That kind of makes me wonder, you look at digital asset treasuries, would they be able to hold mXRP now?
Yeah, absolutely. I suspect it will be a big use case. And again, I go back to the statement we've made in the beginning of the conversation. If you look at the 7% and you assume a $10 billion adoption, this is around $700 million of buying pressure every year. So effectively, you find it's a very complementary vehicle for the entire ecosystem. Ultimately, it's a perpetual buyer of XRP. It's sort of an extremely attractive proposition. But also, of course, if you're a large holder of XRP, you hold your treasury or otherwise, you first have your savings instrument, you first have money, and then over time you have money market instruments and savings products. Yeah. And this is effectively a savings products catering to you. Now, if you feel even more adventurous, you use this savings product in a composable manner and borrow and lend against it and the transactions that we've elaborated, and you help bootstrap the DeFi ecosystem and on the chain, and that ultimately then allows you to benefit from even better risk-adjusted returns. So it's a spectrum, and I certainly expect that larger treasuries will tap into this. I certainly expect some of the prosumers, some of the crypto native DeFi users that we know from the other chains will be migrating and will be adding assets. And we've seen the playbook work across different chains that go into different protocols. We see the exact same potential here.
All right, so I mean, I look at this because we've already seen a very successful DAT launch within the ETH ecosystem, and we haven't seen any kind of yields that compare to this. So immediately you're going to talk about institutional adoption, probably at scale. Obviously, that's going to put some pressure on XRPL in general. Georgios, do you think XRPL, the ecosystem, can handle this?
I mean, the technology is great, right? It's, as Dennis mentioned, it's way cheaper than ETH. You should be able to reduce the barrier of entry. You can have smaller users for a lot of the protocols that we're going to be launching. And, historically, XRPL has been running for, I believe, 12 years. It's one of the oldest chains, older than Ethereum. I mean, I have no doubt that it will be able to rise up to the challenge.
All right.
No, but even more importantly, I think this is actually from a vision perspective and from the core ethos extremely aligned with the XRP ecosystem. Ultimately, when you think of the Internet of Value, tokenization and stablecoins play an extremely central of this. And I think this is exactly the ingredient that will help the ecosystem get to the next step. And we're very excited to partner this. We feel like brothers and siblings from a different universe. We work on exactly on those things day in, day out. And we've been trying for a long time to find the right partners to make it happen. And it certainly feels like a match made in heaven. I
think we're going to see some similar dynamics to what happened on Ethereum back in the day, right? So initially on Ethereum, there were no yields. Now you see extremely high yields for even stable coins, right? Which traditionally it's very hard to get these high yields on stable coins. We expect something similar to happen on XRPL. So once mXRP launches and has these high yields, and there are lending protocols where you can get loans against mXRP, the loans can be in all kinds of assets, and the lending rates are going to rise and converge to the borrow rate or to the interest rate embedded into mXRP. So the fact that mXRP will have these high rates and will be widely embedded across DeFi will also raise yields for RLUSD, for depositing XRP, just vanilla XRP into lending protocols, for tokenized RWAs. Now they'll suddenly have yield, right? So as we saw in Ethereum, once you have an asset that has high yields, this draws the yields across the DeFi ecosystem for all assets much higher, right? So don't be surprised if, as this grows, we start seeing high yields on XRPL for RWAs that traditionally have no way to access yield in the traditional world. As Dennis said, XRPL will be the biggest chain for RWAs, and we're here to create all these opportunities and grow the ecosystem together.
Well, definitely it's going to grow. I'm looking at Midas. You're sitting at TVL around 365 and growing. Obviously, you look at Axelar holding in the billion. So if you're brothers, this is definitely a good brotherly competition right there in terms of opportunity.
It's worth adding that we haven't added all of our assets in circulation yet to DeFi Llama. So we're actually sitting at $1 billion right now.
So it's neck and neck. The race is on. I like it.
We have $2 billion AUM protocols. Yeah, that's nice.
I love it. Hey, listen, it's great to have you guys. I'm very intrigued on how this starts to roll out. We'll definitely maybe do a 6-month or a 90-day, review of how this rolled out, and if there's any findings from this, because I think this could be big in terms of what's happening within the XRP ecosystem, but maybe across all of DeFi, this could start to shift some pretty big advancements, I think, when it comes to crypto. But anyway, guys, thanks for coming in. We appreciate it.
Thank you. See you in a few months. Bye.
Hey, if you're not part of the Diamond Circle, make sure and jump in right now, guys. It is the place where we do additional content for you. And the thing you can do is sign up just down below. It's absolutely free. You get my bear market edge, And it's one of those emails that I send out. It gives you kind of an insights of where I'm going, but also gives you an update of what my thoughts are on the market. So we'll catch you next time right here on The Paul Barron Show.